Let's take a dive into the highly anticipated gunfire game that cost the same as 11 Black Bean Chalupa Supremes from Taco Bell, the game Remnant 2. As someone who dug my claws into Elden Ring, I can say that this game grabbed my attention better than Will Smith's hand to Chris Rock's face. And I started walking funny when I saw that it was advertised as godlike bosses across terrifying worlds. Stacked on top of that, there were some insane reviews, and I was fully expecting to take a trip down the Flavortown lane. The bases were loaded, and we were down 3. As soon as I loaded in with my boy, the ravishing graphics spoke volumes about the ride we were about to take. This was Margot Robbie, and I was running some pump and dump schemes. The developers really focused on the minutia with this, and every single area you explore is a fresh, non-recycled landscape. Everything just felt so fluent. The movement, the fights, the weapons, the dodges, everything about it felt good. There's nothing that the developers skipped to hit their deadlines. And now, coming from someone who loved Elden Ring, I felt like a lot of things were a copy and paste moveset. In this game, you don't really get that. Each time you don't submit to your enemy in this, you still get fucked. Like, there's no workaround to it. That's what makes this game so much fun, is that it's something fresh, it's something new, and it's not just following what the rest of these AAA titles are doing. And as someone who grew up playing the Borderlands series, this game really brought back some nostalgia. This is another loot shooter, except it's just harder, it's a little darker, and it's a lot cooler. And for me to be able to take that away in a game where I can still feel nostalgia without feeling like that they're just trying to rip money from my hands, it's a good feeling. And that's something fresh that I was able to experience again. Being able to build up my class, do what I wanted to do. Not only that, but there are some dope-ass weapons and some dope-ass weapon modifications. You can assert dominance and finally stomp out those insecurities away by destroying some low-level enemies and even your friend, since believe it or not, friendly fire is always fucking on. And personally, I like the friendly fire ability. I think it's a cool mechanic that was implemented in the game, but my person that I was doing it with, he did not nearly as much appreciate it, and that is okay because fuck you, XR.
Going crazy, bro. I have so much spirit.
There are 49 bosses in Remnant 2, and for about 45 of them, you feel like you are riding a bike without a seat on it. I'm thoroughly impressed with the difficulty scaling through the game, and I never felt like any of those felt too tedious or even remedial. And there was a lot of slaughter coming from the Steam reviews about how hard the enemies were as well, and all I have to say is just get good. They don't just throw you in a big arena when you fight a boss. Each boss has a unique fighting round where you figure it out as you go. Some of the fights aren't even that hard. It's just a puzzle you need to dissect while you're getting shot at or crushed or have some bullshit aimbot laser ruining your mental. Now, while you can play this game solo, it is ever so obviously designed to have a duo, since most of the fights arguably require 2 people, or at least one person who's done the playthrough a few times already. And the moves, they're pretty easy to dodge after about your 3rd attempt, and the second stages, they could be a little harder for nearly anyone. Except Shahala. Fuck that guy, fuck that fight, fuck my iframes, fuck my sleep, fuck my life, fuck your bullshit lasers that tear me a new one, but you had a cool intro, so I'm not mad. You jumped across the fucking big hole in the ground?
Yes. Hit space and you can jump.
That is so cap.
Oh, okay.
Ugly. It's a gross word, but there's a few things that we just really need to talk about here. And so when you start the game, you have 4 classes you can choose from. So I chose like the shotgun melee build, just like close range in your face. That was fun to me. So for about the first 15 minutes, I had a lot of fun playing with this melee build. And then I quickly learned that you only have 2 movesets. And I guess you could argue 3 because there is a heavy move, but it doesn't look any different than the light swing. They literally look exactly the same, except one does a little more damage and takes a little more stamina. And then the other one's like your special ability. So there's not much you can do with a melee build. Like, I wouldn't say it's viable, but if it's not going to be viable, at least have fun with it. And the melee's just not fun considering all of the bosses are usually pretty far away. So I'm trying to shotgun someone from 100 meters just looking like a fucking idiot. So I got stuck with a glitch where I couldn't do shit. And every time I loaded the game, my save was corrupted. And for that reason alone, fuck this game. Do not spend your money on it. That's how the review is supposed to go. However, 2 days before my intended upload date, because, fuck me, Steam, I had a little announcement pop up right here about all the updates, the quality of life, the progression balances, and all the bug fixes. Because I wasn't able to play the game as every single time I hit continue, my game crashed. And I thought that was it. 2 weeks went by, me editing this entire video, going through all the clips, and this happened. Which dramatically changes my thoughts on this game. And they made my melee class better again. And it's not even, I wouldn't even say it's good. It's like overpowered. And I find that so fun. Because fiscally speaking, this is 7 Chalupa Supremes before this patch. Now we're talking 15. And that's for the base game. They honestly destroyed it. I personally think that this could be Game of the Year. And it might not have as much of an audience for it, but for how well this game is put together, them listening to their community and making everything so fluid, this is a great fucking game. I don't know why anyone wouldn't play this, and I am not sponsored by any way, shape, or means, because I only have 100 subs, so subscribe. Hopefully you guys like it so far. This is my first time doing this kind of video, but each video is going to be a little different. I'm going to be playing different games. If a video does really well, I'll probably do a second part of that game. So this one I'm going to rate into 7 different categories. The first one, we're going to break down the difficulty. So honestly, I would give it an 8 out of 10. And that 8 out of 10 isn't saying like, oh fuck, it's really difficult. It's saying that the ability to change how hard or how easy you want it to be is very possible. So for me, there's 4 difficulties in the game. Survivor, Veteran, Nightmare, and Apocalypse. I only play it on Veteran and Nightmare. I haven't even unlocked Apocalypse yet. So I'd say an 8. An 8 is a very fair rating. Nightmare, it was pretty hard. I'd compare it to like Elden Ring. And then Veteran is like, you're just a little over leveled, it feels like, for every fight. So honestly, an 8 out of 10 is a very fair rating. And for most games, it will not get that highly rated. The graphics look great. Everything, like the status effects, the scenery, all of it just looks good. The weapons, they have some cool textures to them. I'm giving it an 8.5. The only thing that's really holding it back is, like, personally, I have a pretty beefy PC. But there's still a lot of times where it's not like stuttery, but your FPS will drop. Like sub 60, and for a game that's an intensive shooter, it's not the best feeling, but it still feels fluid. So for me personally, I'd have to give it an 8.5 because I can't really deal with FPS drops. It messes up my gameplay a lot. Fluidity, 10 out of 10. Everything feels great. There's not much more to it. When you play it, you guys should play it. You'll see it. You'll feel it. You'll know it. It just feels good. It's amazing. The story. So I'm giving this a 6 out of 10. And it's not lack of story. And it might be because I'm a little slow. But it just doesn't feel connected. The objectives, they're not... I'd say they're a little confusing. At times you don't really know what you're doing. You can always hit tab or whatever you're playing on to see what you should be doing. But you don't have any connection to the players really. Like, I'm not spoiling much. But it starts out with you finding a girl, and you find her pretty quick. There's nothing holding you to like wanting to be the best, wanting to conquer whatever you're conquering. You're just doing it for yourself to be good. And I'm not saying you always have to be hero, but this definitely isn't a game where you feel like you're the hero. Therefore, I'm giving it a 6 out of 10, which is a fair rating for the game. For the value of the game, I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. So if I didn't have the bug to where I had a corrupt save, and I didn't even lose my progress, I just had to wait 2 weeks to start playing again, which really sucks unless you want to start all the way over, but there's a certain door that was really screwing me up. I would rate it a 12 out of 10. Because this game is $50, and I would argue it's worth $60 to $70, and that's just for the standard edition, which is a little steep, but that's how all AAA titles have been lately. So honestly, 8 out of 10 with that bug. And if you're now buying the game, I would say 10 out of 10 for sure. There's not too much to say about it, but the co-op, being able to play with your friend, 10 out of 10. The lack of co-op, however, I would give a 7 out of 10. Considering if you don't play this with a friend, I could see it being, the difficulty scaling would be a lot higher. And I don't think it would be as fun fighting the bosses. The enemies themselves, you only need one person, but for co-op, 2. And with how smooth it is with another player, it is a 10 out of 10. And I feel like this should have its own category, but the reward system for the game, 6.5 out of 10. Because you kill a super cool boss. A really hard boss that took you 20 plus attempts. And what is he going to drop you? Usually like a crafting material for a gun. It doesn't feel like you get as good of rewards as you should throughout the game. That doesn't mean that you are underpowered. It just means that when you do get rewarded, it doesn't feel at consistent times. So with that being said, 6.5 out of 10. And I don't think it's something they can fix because it's already how they structured the game. But it's a solid rating, and I put it in its own category for that reason, because it's the minutia that I'm looking at, which is kind of bringing that down. This video took me a long time to edit, as I've never done this, and you guys destroyed it on my last video. I'm very appreciative to you guys that did. But overall, this game is underappreciated for how good it actually is. And I know I sound like a broken record here, but it's just fun. It does it a little different than the other games. And I didn't play the first Remnant, but I do plan on replaying this eventually. I am working on more videos. If you guys have a certain game that you want me to go through and talk about, please feel free to drop a comment. I will respond on every single comment, and hopefully it will be too much for me to do. But we've got a while before we get to that point. So thank you guys for watching. Help me out on the algorithm by hitting the like. You can watch my other videos. They're pretty solid. They just haven't had any exposure. Besides that, if you made it this far, thank you, and peace out, guys.